For those of you who are already here, welcome to this. This is the 14th iteration of the 100,000 Poets for Change, and I'm very glad that I'm not only able to welcome you here for this session, actually 4 sessions that we'll have today for uh, the international global 100,000 Poets for Change poetry reading, but also because of your generosity in joining us, contributing to this event by participating in it, and I'm deeply grateful for it. I would, without any further ado, want to invite our chair of the English department, Professor Alan Grostephan, to come to the mic and to say a few words of welcome to start the proceedings. Alan, please.
Okay. Welcome. Good morning. I'm Alan Grostephan, chair of the English department at Agnes Scott. And I'm really pleased to be here for this all-day reading event that brings together so many people who love poetry. I'm especially grateful to Professor Waqas Khwaja, who has organized this event over many years and directs it with such grace and generosity. This event is made possible by the James T. and Ella Rather Kirk Fund, which was established by alumna, artist, writer, and trustee Mary Wallace Kirk in honor of her parents. The Kirk Fund supports and enriches academic programs in history, music, literature, art, and philosophy at Agnes Scott. Okay, I'm going to give just a brief welcome, and I'm going to read a poem, and then we'll move on to the other readers. As one disturbing thing after another happens in this country, I'm grateful to be in a room with people who see poetry as a way to build community, to form resistance to autocracy, and to survive in places that are violent and repressive. I'm struck by the roster of poets scheduled for this event who are from all over the world, from Iran to Poland to Pakistan to Italy. I know that many of these poets, including Professor Khwaja, write and read in at least 2 languages, and many of you are translators. With this in mind, just yesterday I was reading Exophony, the new essay collection by Yoko Tawada, a Japanese writer who has lived in Germany for 20 years and writes in both German and Japanese, often switching languages between stories in a collection or chapters in her novels. The term exophony means to exist in a place outside your mother tongue. That existence doesn't necessarily mean you live in that place. It can also mean writing or reading in a language that was not the one given to you at birth. What happens, Tawada asks, when you step outside the cocoon of your mother language? What new kinds of music do you begin to hear? One of the reasons she likes the term exophony is because it sounds like symphony and gets at the root of our love of poetic language, which is that first and foremost, it is a form of song. I also love this concept because one of the characteristics of a writer, or at least a writer like me, is that you don't necessarily belong anywhere or to any language, that underneath your curiosity to inhabit other bodies and travel to other places through writing is a sense of alienation, that we are in some ways always in the wrong place or in the right place, but not totally comfortable with it. In the first essay of Exophony, Tawada discusses how writers from Senegal, colonized by France, were forced to write in French. Later, in post-colonial Senegal, when Wolof, one of the predominant native languages of Senegal, gained acceptance and became a written language, writers were encouraged to write in it. However, some Senegalese writers opted to write in a completely different language, neither Wolof or French, something Tawada praises. Here she reminds us that any language you write in, even the one you were born into, is a chosen language, and that every writer should be reaching for language that gives them autonomy and freedom to explore. This brings me to a poet Tawada and I both love, Paul Celan. Paul Celan grew up in Romania, in a very multilingual and multicultural city, but his family wanted him to study in German. During the Nazi occupation of Romania in World War II, Celan, who was Jewish, was put into forced labor, and both his parents were murdered in a concentration camp. After the war, Celan eventually ends up in Paris, where he becomes one of the great and strange poets of the 20th century. Salon spoke Romanian, Russian, French, Yiddish, Italian, and English, but chose to write in German. But not just any German. He experiments constantly, combining and inventing words and fragmenting them, pushing the borders of how much a poem can hold and what it can do, using language that challenges and dislocates the reader, an experience I've always found invigorating, like I'm entering a type of dream state. One of my favorite collections by Paul Celan is his third book, Speech Grill, or Sprachgitter, whose title is a combination of the words speech and grill. I'd like to wrap up here by reading to you the title poem, Speech Grill, but first should say a couple things about what it might mean. One meaning is that the speech grill is the dividing screen between a priest and one who is confessing their sins. Celan had received a postcard from a friend with an image of a confessional screen around the time when he was writing these poems. The other is that the speech grill is the screen dividing each of us from each other, and that we speak to one another to get through this screen and connect. In this same vein, language itself is a type of speech grill, a grid with holes or spaces in the middle of it, that we use this grill or grid to somehow get hold of language and make a pattern that will mean something and allows us to hear one another. Since I don't speak German, I have no way to read the original version of this, so I'm going to read a translation by Pierre Joris, who did the complete Paul Celan. Here's the poem Speech Grill by Paul Celan. Eye round between the bars, flitterbug lid, rose upward, freeze a gaze. Iris, swimmer, dreamless and dim, the heavens, heart gray, must be near. Slanted in the iron socket, the smoldering splinter. By its light sense, you guess the soul. Were I like you, were you like me? Didn't we stand under one trade wind? We are strangers. The flagstone, on them close together, the two heart gray pools, two mouthfuls of silence.
So there we are. Thank you so much, Alan. Really appreciate that. And the words of welcome, the fact that the department has supported this event from the very beginning and in very material ways, that is really appreciated. A couple of caveats before I begin. I am not going to be reading out the full bios of the poets. I don't want to stand, by the way, between you and the poets anyway, but there's a long roster of poets, and we want all of them to have a chance to read their poems and share with us their thoughts, their emotions, their feelings, their experiences. So these biographies are available on a link that has been provided to you by our technical expert visit team, Leah Owenby and Calvin Bergamy. You will find them in your chat. I believe that link in the chat. And if we are able to project the bios on the screen, they will be projected on the screen only when I am transitioning and talking about introducing one poet before the reading to the next, so that it will not or should not interfere with the reading at all. The poets, when they are reading, will be on the screen, and all of this is being recorded as well. As you know, the archives are preserved not only by the parent organization, the 100,000 Poets for Change, but also in the library in Stanford. And it's been done from the very beginning of this whole movement, somewhere around the year 2011 onwards. Now, having said that, I have the privilege, the honor actually, to welcome our lead poet for this event. I am so very grateful that she has been able to make time for us and to open the readings of the poetry reading session here. This is none other than the celebrated poet, translator, playwright, librettist, Sholeh Wolpe, Iranian American by heritage. And especially grateful because she's at this time in Cordoba for the launch of the the Spanish translation of her very well received and much applauded memoir, Abacus of Loss. Another book of hers, which is on Fariduddin Attar's, a translation of Fariduddin Attar's Conference of Birds, um, has already garnered worldwide attention. And some parts of it have been, I think, reproduced in a new book or have been issued in a new book for more popular consumption, I should say. But Fariduddin Attar was somebody whom Rumi looked up to as his mentor. And I think that is very important. It's introduction for many American readers of perhaps a new name, a new voice. Specialists knew about him, poetry lovers knew about him, I'm sure. But for the wider audience, this is a much needed service, I would say also, but an introduction to one of the really great poets of the past. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Sholeh Wolpe. Thank you so much for being here. The screen is yours.
Can you hear me? Yes? All right. Excellent. Thank you, Waqas. Thank you so much for your generosity and for inviting me. As Waqas said, I am in Cordova at a Cosmopoetica festival, and tonight I'm going to be on stage with Kamel Daoud, the Algerian writer, exiled writer. And today was full of like press and journalists, and they were asking us about this idea of what's happening around the world and exile. And when I opened the book thinking what I'm going to read for this magnificent gathering of poets, I opened to the section about exile. The world grows blackthorn walls. And I thought, okay, well, this is what I'm going to begin with. Let's see, got a tall, stiff, and spiny. Try to make it to the other side and risk savage thorns. We were left home in our teens, children who crossed boundaries and were torn by its thousand serrated tongues. We who bear scars that bloom and bloom beneath healed skins. Who have we become? I ask myself, is home my ghost? Does it wear my underwear folded neatly in the antique chest of drawers I bought 20 years ago, nest inside my blouse that hangs from one metal hanger I cannot discard? Is it lost between lines of books, shelved alphabetical in a language I was not born to? Or here, on the lip of this chipped cup, my last lover left behind? I carry seeds in my mouth, plant turmeric, cardamom, and tiny aromatic cucumbers in this garden, water them with rain I wring from my grandmother's songs. They will grow, I know, against these blackthorn walls. They can push through anything uncut. I left home at 13. I hadn't lived enough not to know, I hadn't lived enough to know how not to love. Home was the Caspian Sea, the busy bazaars, the aroma of kebab and rice, Friday lunches, picnics by mountain streams. I never meant to stay away. They said, come back and you will die. Exile is a suitcase with a broken strap. I fill up 100 notebooks with scribbles, throw them into fire and begin again, this time tattooing the words on my forehead, this time writing only not to forget. Complacency is catching like the common cold. I swim upstream to lay my purple eggs. They say, draw sustenance from this land, but look how my fruits hangs from its spirals and smell of old notebooks and lace. What is a transplanted tree but a time being who has adapted to adoption? Spirits urge and spirits go. They weep and wail at the door of the temple where I sit at the edge of an abyss. Perhaps it's only in exile that spirits arrive. But even this is an illusion. Home is a missing tooth. The tongue reaches for hardness but falls into absence. And finally, from this collection, Dear America. Dear America, you used to creep into my room, remember? I was 11 and you kept coming night after night in Tehran, slidden from inside the old radio on my desk, past the stack of geometry homework, across the faded Persian carpet, and thrust into me with rock and roll thumps. I loved you more than bubblegum, more than the imported bananas street vendors sold for a fortune. I thought you were azure, America, and orange, sky and poppies, like Mama's new dress and kumquats. I dreamed of you, America. I dreamed of you every single night with the ferocity of a lost child until you became true like flesh. And when I arrived, you punched yourself into me like a laugh. I'm going to just read maybe a few poems from The Invisible Sun that is the collection of Attar's work. I think in these days, in these perhaps darkened days, we need his inspired words more than ever. And my way of resistance, my way of resisting these forces of darkness is transporting Attar's inspiring work from Persian language into English so that we could all be lifted by them. So I just opened a few random places. This is a kind of book that you just open at random and read it and you'll be inspired by it. So just that, and they come in like very, very short pieces. A true wayfarer's way is to act, yet we keep giving sermons. That is the trouble. Both this world and the next are adrift within the soul. The body hidden in the soul secreted in the body, each lost inside the other. Emerge from your confusion. Find the core of your humanity. Love is not a metaphor. It fits into no language, no world of words. Love is a tongue that's spoken in clues, hints, and signs. Only the heart gets the essence of love. The mind can never wrap itself around it. And I like this one. It's very whimsical and yet so deep. At midnight, my silver-bodied beauty, drunk with love, broke into my room. I lost all my senses and blood bubbled hot in my veins. That enchanter offered me a cup and said, "Can you drink this and not get drunk?" I took a whiff of that wine and my intellect packed its bag. Out went the light of my sanity. I roared, leaped up, discarded my religious robe, then tied an idolater's belt around my waist. I became a gambler, a rabble-rouser, highway robber, and worshipper of wine. I renounced everything good, rejected all evil, and became nothing, everything, and nothing again. When everything, ego, vanity, and self were consumed, I was finally able to let go. And finally, this last one. If the Almighty embraces you, you'll catch fire with joy. This is how it works, not the topsy-turvy way you imagine. Narcissists don't get this. Thank you very much for having me. And I really look forward to hearing everybody in the recorded session. I have to now run. As I said, I'm at a festival, but it was an absolute pleasure to be here. And thank you for inviting me.